Hey guys, ScoutWithBryan here. Look, I understand the majority of you coming to this video are probably just going to thumb down it, comment an L, and try to cancel me. And people have been trying to do that for 2 years. I'm still here. I'm still swinging. That's the internet for you. There's a bunch of mobbed up keyboard warriors trying to end anyone who doesn't agree with them about everything. I learned a long time ago that the wisdom of crowds isn't really a thing. In fact, a lot of times the opposite's true. So while I know in your court of popular opinion, I might be considered an enemy, you might hate me, and that's fine. But at least do me the courtesy of watching this video to make sure that you hate me for something that I've actually done or said. Because there's a lot of BS out there. A lot of people who believe I've said things I didn't say, who fell for Photoshops or burner accounts trolling me or any number of other things. So this video is my response to the 20-minute epic couch manifesto from Rusty Buckets. I'll make sure that's linked so you can watch that if you'd like to see what I'm responding to specifically. If you're a fan or supporter of mine, I continue to be supremely loyal to you and very grateful for your support. And if you happen to have stumbled onto me from some of this controversy, hey, I hope you'll check out my stuff and see if you might learn something. And if you still hate me at the end, that's your right, and I wish peace, love, and positivity to all of you. But I'm going to keep being me and speaking my mind from my platform, and you can take it or leave it. So again, let's take some of the things Rusty said and kind of just respond piece by piece. Starting with the basketball takes I'm critiqued for. I ranked DeMar DeRozan literally right above Kyrie Irving, yes, in a ranking of, kind of my top 100 in the league right now. Literally, I had DeMar like 26th or 30th or something, and Kyrie 31st. Okay. So did I rank DeMar DeRozan pretty much equal to Kyrie Irving in value right now? I did. I don't think that's a fatal flaw. This isn't about talent. Kyrie is certainly a much more talented, skilled player, all those things. But in terms of impacting winning, yeah, I mean, I do have some question marks about Kyrie, like we saw on last year's Celtics, like we've seen on this year's Nets. He does sometimes struggle to fit into a locker room and really get along with everybody on the court and commit to playing defense. And yeah, DeMar's not a perfect player by any means, but I think he's a tremendously underrated player by the analytics community. I think he's been a huge winner, throughout his career, at least throughout the regular season. He really carried a lot of phenomenal teams in Toronto with the help of Kyle Lowry, of course. And he's, one of my favorite players in the league. So, sure, I rank them about even in the league. If you think that's so unforgivable, fine. Regarding Jim Boylen, no. I did not actually say he was a good NBA head coach. My actual take on him, if you want to go back and look, is that I wasn't even sure he's a top 25 NBA head coach. I endorsed him as the coach for the Bulls, and that they needed for what's, in my opinion, a pretty soft group of losers who don't know how to win. And they might even still keep him. They haven't fired him yet. The biggest thing I defended him from was the onslaught of blog boys whining about running suicides or having to watch film after a back-to-back where he lost by 40 points. Jim Boylen's been in the NBA nearly 30 years. He won 3 rings, including as an assistant coach under Pop. He worked under Tom Izzo extensively. I promise you he's not a moron. You might think he's a moron now in your 20-year-old age. The same way I'm sure you thought Terry Stotts and Dwayne Casey and any other old school coach was back then when they had crappy teams. But once those guys get better teams, eventually you realize they do know a shit ton about basketball, and maybe Jim Boylen keeps his opportunity, changes the culture there, maybe he gets an opportunity somewhere else, or maybe he goes back to being a lifelong assistant. Either way, he's forgotten more about basketball than you or I will ever know. So if defending Jim Boylen includes just saying that, yes, he's obviously a pretty smart guy to have been a 30-year NBA coach and basketball lifer, and top assistant for Greg Popovich, maybe he's not the best head coach in the world. Maybe the Bulls also had a horrible front office that gave him a really shitty roster. And as far as takes, I've been the most hated person on NBA Twitter a couple years now. I've never been all takes exposed once. That's pretty impressive if you ask me. The worst 2 you could find was me having DeMar tied with Kyrie and something I didn't really say about Jim Boylen. I'm sure I've been wrong about, more than that. I'm sure you could probably find worse. But, I also didn't say that I'd take R.J. Barrett over Zion, Rusty, or that I'd take not only Aiden and Bagley, but also Mo Bamba, Michael Porter Jr., and Mikal Bridges over Luka, or that the Lakers lost the AD trade, or that Brad Stevens is overrated, or say Andrew Wiggins might be the next Kobe, or say that Porzingis is going to be better than Dirk, or that Karl Anthony Towns could be the greatest center ever. Rusty, I don't know. Those ones might be a little worse than Jim Boylan, but you can check my record of takes. I've said that Pascal Siakam will be an MVP someday, and I said that as early as after the first game of this season. I was unbelievably high on him, even going back to last season, comparing him to Giannis and guys like that. He is so skilled and has improved so much throughout his short NBA career so far. I've said that Tyler Hero will be a stud. I love Ja, Rui, Hero, among others, and was pretty tepid on R.J. Barrett, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish. I said Boston would be better this year without Kyrie and that Kemba's a better player in that system. I didn't doubt the Lakers or Clippers like a lot of media did. I said they'd both be elite, and I said that Russ would be great in D'Antoni's system. I've had my misfires, but I think I'm still batting a better percentage than you overall. Piece of shit. About to cyberbully. Stupid, pretentious, entitled, mentally unstable dick. Such a fuckhead. Oh, sorry, those were just things you said about me. Sure, that's all about me, not the person saying any of those things. I'll stay above those comments. Quote, former very bad at his job NBA scout. I feel like this is celebrities reading mean tweets. Well, first of all, at least get the job title right. I was video coordinator for most of my NBA tenure. Probably the youngest head video coordinator in the NBA ever, straight out of college, and did that for 4 years with the Washington Wizards. The Wizards win totals, so if you're going to call me a very bad at his job NBA scout, Wizards 3 years before I became full-time won 23, 20, 29 games. When I was full-time, 44, beat the Bulls in 5 games, 46, swept Toronto, 41, 49, beat Atlanta, lost to Boston in Game 7. Since then, 143, without me, since I got let go, they won 43, lost 4-2 to the Raptors in the playoffs, which, by the way, Rusty, the 1 year I actually did work as an advanced scout, which has nothing to do with evaluating players, but worked as an advanced scout for the Hawks and Raptors. I did advise the Raptors heavily during that series and tell them all the keys, in my opinion, of how to beat the Wizards and game plan strategies and things that they could do to take advantage of playing against Bradley Beal and John Wall. And again, the Wizards lost 4-2 to the Raptors that year in the playoffs in the first round. Then they won 32 games. Then they were on pace to win less than that this year. You take that for data. And no, of course I don't believe I'm responsible for that or meant anywhere near as much as the players, coach, etc. But I don't believe I had nothing to do with it either. And you talk about having pride in your YouTube community and what you've built, and that's great. But I do have pride in the job I did in the NBA. And I know that I was a vital cog for a team that changed its culture and became a winning organization while I was there, of course, mostly because of John Wall and Bradley Beal. But I also remember that there were front office members who wanted to take Terrence Ross ahead of Bradley Beal, and in the video room I played a part in making sure that we didn't make that mistake. So I know I poured every ounce of energy into that job, and as you can see, I still have pride in what we did there and what I did there. And I certainly, this shitty scout that got fired narrative is pretty comedic to me. As you also said, shitty scout that can no longer find a job in the NBA. You refer to my epic manifesto a few times, but if you see the words, quote, I was fired once, true, from the NBA. I think pretty much anybody that's ever worked in the NBA is probably fired at least once. But you can go to that, scoutwithbryan.com/blog/ether, and see that post in its original form. And if you click on those words, I was fired once, it'll take you to a tweet from May 26, 2019, which was one of many times I've said that I'm not interested in working in the NBA again. And I left because I decided I didn't want to continue to potentially move around the country every few years, where head coaches are fired every couple of years and you got to be willing to pack up your bags and move to Oklahoma City and Portland and all around the country. And I valued family more than that. I didn't want to have a career in such an unstable industry. and I instead tried to carve my own path in one place. So no, I can't no longer find a job in the NBA. I'm not looking for a job in the NBA. I was fired once, like I said, by the Wizards after my year with the Hawks and Raptors. Bud left the Hawks for Milwaukee. Dwayne Casey got fired, as I said, after winning Coach of the Year. My status as an advanced scout was in limbo, as is what happens usually when head coaches leave or get fired. I was waiting them out. I had an offer from one totally other team, Western Conference playoff team, to do advanced scouting for them part-time. I wasn't sure enough if there were going to be enough teams to hire me to make it worth my time, so I decided to pursue something else, and I didn't want to keep being subject to, again, coaches getting let go every couple of years. Quote, I worked in the NBA for a couple of years, is what you said. 7 years is a little more than a couple. I did work 2 years at the University of Maryland under Hall of Fame coach Gary Williams. And if you want to pick apart my resume, please do share yours. Undisputed NBA 2K champ at your high school doesn't count either. It's still badass, but nah. You called it a cardinal sin to call out Coach Nick, who you can look into, and I also talked about in that blog post and provided links to, but was fired most likely for racism. I've seen him conduct some of the most awkward interviews ever at NBA Summer League. He believes players shouldn't dive for loose balls. Thinks Russell Westbrook never should have been a point guard. I know Coach Nick has his YouTube devotees, and if you're one of them, I don't want to tell you that Santa Claus isn't real. But I used to like his videos too, until I got to the NBA and realized he doesn't know shit, and about half of what he says entirely misinterprets what actually happens on plays, uses totally inaccurate terminology, or is just inane bullshit. And if that's your thing, great. I'll just leave it at that he's a perfect example of someone who figured out the marketing side really well, figured out the algorithm. But do you actually know who he is? Do you actually know about him? I can promise you he doesn't know much more ball than your average middle school coach, and I'd encourage you to do your own research about his character. You mentioned clickbait, which I frequently rail against, and you did cite, fair, okay, that I used a couple of engaging YouTube titles, like in my Rui Hachimura video asking if he could be like Giannis. But from the draftniks who thought Rui was a second-round pick and complete bum and probably the most mocked pick of the draft, to now LeBron speaking highly of him, lots of NBA scouts mentioning Kawhi's name, etc., etc. Yes, when I watched Rui's film, I did see some Giannis in him, in being a really switchable 1-5 guy, a capable ball-handling 4 with good length, really good surprising athleticism, skilled post game, really fundamental game, honed at Gonzaga. And if you watch the video, I point out plenty of similarities in their games, and I do think Rui's going to be an all-star within 3 years. And you said he's not a defensive player at all? That's YouTuber speak to me. That's falling for analytics or college analytics, which are atrocious. Guy can play defense. I know how to watch the game. He will be a perfectly competent defender in the NBA, able, like I said, guard a lot of different players, a lot of different positions, good body, good willingness to defend, good stance, good length, good instincts. He's going to be just fine. Quote, you can't come to this platform, referring to Twitter, I believe, and expect it to conform to what you want. You got to conform to what's already there. Respectfully, Rusty, fuck that. Twitter is a cesspool. It's an echo chamber. There's lynch mobs waiting to cancel anyone who says anything they don't agree with. Whenever you offend the woke crowd, they're the same ones that are in your DMs telling you to kill yourself for sending clown emojis or whatever. And guess what? That's why there's virtually no NBA players actually on Twitter. Because none of them give a shit. Dinwiddie, KD on occasion, Jamal Crawford, Jared Dudley, both of whom I'm pretty grateful for, happen to follow me. But that's about it. It's a toxic environment that they can't stand. Everyone just wants to play gotcha and talk shit and troll and mock dudes. And once they're done playing for their favorite team, they decide they hate them and just want to see that player destroyed. Speaking from experience again, coaches, front offices, they don't really give two shits about Twitter either, like the players. They follow Woj and Zach Lowe and Shams to get their news. They don't follow the blog boys or the YouTubers or anyone else. They read Hoops Hype and have Woj notifications on. So again, I'm building a platform that respects coaches and doesn't call for their firing every other second, that respects and doesn't troll players, that doesn't do the narratives and the is Harden a loser, is Kobe inefficient, is KD soft, bullshit that's all over TV. And as far as I know, Rusty, you've never followed me. You're mad that I had some beefs with your friends. Fine. That's a heck of a way to judge a person, just out of context based on what other people say about me. So again, Rusty, you don't make the Twitter rules. Neither do I. But I do control my feed. Twitter's toxic enough. Why would I let anyone call me any number of vicious names and still follow me? Do you walk into somebody's restaurant and cuss them out and expect to stay there? What about if you didn't even buy anything at the restaurant? Sorry, but yeah, my corner of Twitter is going to be a more respectful corner if you want to interact with me. You're welcome to disagree, to not subscribe to my Patreon, to just observe, but you're not welcome to be a dick. If you want that crowd, and I do think it's a little clear that you do, given how many of your supporters DM me what a pedo or FAGGOT I am, or shithead or piece of shit, go for it. Personally, I think the culture of Twitter needs to change, and the least I can do is enforce it on my own platform. It's why I block expeditiously. If you're the kind of person who just runs around posting clown emojis, trying to dunk on people, cancel everyone, send hateful DMs, I don't want your business. So yeah, I block a lot of people. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'd rather have 1,000 smart, awesome followers than 30,000 morons. And to clarify, I've never been a dick to someone, just for not subscribing to my Patreon. I've never blocked anyone just for not subscribing. The only time I've ever done that is if someone either was obnoxious in response to me just respectfully asking that over a DM, or ignored it multiple times and then also trolled or mocked me elsewhere on Twitter. Again, Rusty, you may think you make the rules of Twitter, but you don't, and I happen to have a bigger platform on there. Not that that matters, but thousands of people have told me, no, sorry, I can't support you right now. I'm a student, I'm a teacher, whatever. I respect that. But if I see someone who's followed for a year and couldn't be bothered to even reply, if I happen to see them also mocking me somewhere, hey, do it in DMs with friends or on a burner or whatever else. If you're dumb enough to do it on your handle and I see you doing it with people I follow interact with, I might just block you. You want to get unblocked? Fine. You can talk all the shit about me if you want to pay for it. I'm not providing my services forever for free. I didn't agree to any contract like that. It's my business. It's my right to do what I want. So, as much as you may disagree with that, again, it's my platform. You do with it what you want. I'll do with it what I want. Regarding better person or smarter person, whatever, sure, I do have a little bit of a superiority complex. But expertise is still a thing. And I'm sorry if that's pretentious or condescending. But you don't get to tell a doctor how to do surgery because you watched House a few times. Can you tell me about a peel-back switch, a rear-view contest, 2-for-2 pick-and-roll coverage? Can you tell me floppy versus two chest, the keys to icing a side pick-and-roll, the technique involved, the difference between a hawk cut and a UCLA cut, Horns chest, Milwaukee action, ATO, STS, SOB, BOB, ice to full rotate, blast action, the most important guy concept of pick-and-roll defense, a single side versus double side pick-and-roll, X-outs, the nail, cover down, pinch post, 2-9ing, shake action, pistol, double drag, the difference between delay and C. I'm happy to put your knowledge to the test sometime, and you could do the same to me. And we could have a good old debate if you want. But yeah, I earned my spot in the league and in basketball by pouring 100-hour-plus work weeks, nearly 10 years of my life, into high-level coaching staffs and film rooms, in the same job that Eric Spoelstra and Frank Vogel and Mike Budenholzer started in. And I was, as much as you like to think I was a ball boy or shitty scout or held a video camera or whatever, in every single coaches meeting for 4 years with the Wizards. I have basketball expertise. Plenty of YouTubers grind and know the algorithm and are good in engagement there. They can be good at the business side. It doesn't mean they know ball. It also doesn't mean they don't know ball. So I mean no offense to YouTubers. I don't hate anyone. I've been on some channels for interviews and podcasts, As your boy Kenny exposed, I've offered to come on his show, and I've done the same thing with plenty of other big influencers or YouTubers, because I'm an aggressive marketer and I'm happy to share my stories, insights, experience with anyone who will listen. And I still offer that. If you want to take me to task about anything, be a man and have the conversation. Grill me if you want on my controversial takes or things that you think I did or didn't say. I'll still hop on. I'm right here. I'm not hiding. I respect the hustle of you and YouTubers and anyone self-made and anyone of any age grinding, doing anything around the world, truthfully. But yeah, I'm not impressed by your subscriber count. I don't view likes or clout as any arbiter of truth. I don't care if I have 5,000 subs in the end or 5 million. Me and the Scout with Bryan channel, I don't cater my videos to an algorithm. I don't limit their runtime. I don't spice them up with music or snazzy effects or any other bells and whistles. It's pure, raw, unadulterated basketball like you'd see in an NBA film session. And so instead of spending days on production value, I do spend days trying to find the perfect clip to illustrate a point, to show how a play is executed the right way. Find out the truth behind who actually made a mistake on a scheme. It's not for everyone. That's perfectly fine. But yeah, I don't see myself ever making a living by talking about basketball without actually showing many clips of basketball. Stats are deceiving as hell, and personally, watching you pontificate about me for 20 minutes was painful enough. I can't see myself enjoying it about why Brad Stevens is overrated either. So I'm going to keep using content. The NBA will keep taking the ad revenue, which is their right. And I'll keep on respectfully asking people who support my stuff to support for even a couple bucks a month on Patreon. And get 15 bonus videos and a ton more extra content and private chats, so on and so forth. And I think that's a big part of the future of content creation. So it's not about the algorithm or clickbait or getting enough views. People should support quality stuff that they enjoy. And if they enjoy yours, I do wish you luck on the Patreon that you said you intended to launch soon. You claim I defend police brutality, which is total bullshit. Not what I said at all. And you either lack reading comprehension, or you fell for a viral Mason Ginsburg tweet where he screenshot the first 4 words of a tweet and cut out the rest. Because in that tweet, I was literally responding to Amin El-Hassan, and we were going back and forth, because I thought he had a pretty callous attitude toward cops getting run over and the violent protests, and Amin said that I was supporting police brutality. My reply, literally, and I'll read it to you, was, I'm supporting police brutality because I don't support cops run over by cars in the middle of the street or having 50 people climb on cars trying to set it on fire? How about this? Killing George Floyd and killing cops is fucking bad. Supporting police brutality, FOH, or fuck out of here. So yes, that first sentence maybe was a little bit of a run-on, maybe it was a little long, but it ended with a question mark. It was a rhetorical question. To say, no, I'm not supporting police brutality, just because I'm saying that I'm not supporting cops getting killed in the streets. Okay? But in no way, shape, or form did I say I support police fucking brutality. And if you think my energy during the protests was too much about thinking that the violent protests were the right way to enact change and honor the memory of George Floyd, you're entitled to that opinion. And I apologize again to black followers I've lost, or anybody that was offended by any of my opinions during that time. But I'm also entitled to my anger and to feel that looting and burning and unrest that led to the killing of retired black police officer David Dorn, or black federal officer Patrick Underwood, and tens of other cops and random civilians nationwide. I didn't think that was worth it. I even acknowledged on Twitter that maybe I should have been more outspoken about the Black Lives Lost and raising awareness about police brutality, which is certainly a thing, and condemning any of the inappropriate or disgusting actions by cops to protesters that absolutely need to be held accountable. And I appreciated that feedback. I took time to watch a bunch of videos on systemic and implicit racism, redlining, Juneteenth, understanding the stances of NBA players, and I feel like I do have a better understanding now of how big of an issue it still is and how important the movement is. But saying I support police brutality, that's laughable at best, libel at worst. You mentioned my tweet about Philando Castile, where I said he had a loaded gun in his pocket, which was true. He did have a loaded gun in his pocket. Rusty says he was reaching for the gun's registration, I understand that's up for debate, and we don't know with certainty. But, Rusty, it's hard to call the killing, quote, completely unjustifiable when a jury of 12 people, including 2 black people, unanimously voted to acquit the officer on all charges. I've watched the dash cam footage, and sadly the truth is we don't know exactly. If you haven't, you're welcome to watch it yourself. You can certainly believe that he was reaching for registration, as he said, or that a more veteran officer could have diffused the situation better, and that maybe if Castile was white, the Hispanic officer wouldn't have been as fearful and quick-triggered, but you can't say with certainty that he wasn't reaching for the gun. And the fact that a bunch of people on Twitter would murder that police officer if they happen to be in the room alone with him speaks to how quick we are to just jump to judgment and demand justice even with violent means and not take the time to consider all the facts. No, Philando Castile did not deserve to die. Dying in front of your wife and child is absolutely tragic and disgusting and sad and shameful and horrible. But at the same time, you can also understand that police are literally trained only to shoot to kill, which a lot of people don't even realize, and that they're trained to discharge their weapon not with caution or once or twice, but until they're sure that the threat is neutralized. Police have tough fucking jobs. And I can support Black Lives Matter as a movement, but also be tremendously grateful for the work that the majority of good cops do, putting their lives on the line to keep the country safe on a daily basis. And believe it or not, reasonable minds will disagree on things like this particular case. That's why it went to trial, where lawyers vigorously argued both sides and then relied on a jury to weigh the evidence and find a verdict. I don't immediately play judge, jury, and executioner. I believe more in evaluating everything on a case-by-case basis and doing all my research. And again, you're entitled to disagree, but I'm also entitled to have my beliefs. Rayshard Brooks, for example. That killing, I don't understand, and I think the officer should be found guilty in some fashion. I've seen a black Georgia sheriff named Alfonso Williams argue that it was justified, and that if Brooks had hit the officer with his taser, the officer could have been immobilized and Brooks could have stole his gun. But guess what? I strongly disagree with the sheriff, because with 2 officers chasing after Brooks, even if one got hit briefly by a taser, the other officer still would have been able to shoot Brooks if he happened to make a move on the actual gun. In my opinion, he was essentially running with a less lethal weapon and certainly didn't need to die for that. And they should be held accountable. Breonna Taylor, if the officers really didn't announce themselves at the door and turned off body cams or any other things they should have been wearing, and botched an unnecessary raid horribly and ended up killing an innocent girl, that's murder. We don't have to agree always, and maybe the fact that I'm white and grew up in an area with a great police department that had plenty of minorities and has a great relationship with all corners of our community biases me to sympathizing with them more. But we also don't have to pretend that every single person ever killed by police is unjustified. We have to look at the facts. Regarding Karl Malone, first, yes, what he did was statutory rape. Disgusting, disgraceful, awful. We all agree with that. And yes, Rusty, you're right. There is no such thing as consensual sex with a 13-year-old, and I regret using that word. That was a mistake. The context I used it in was a lot of people seem to be using very violent rhetoric regarding the rape, making it sound like Karl had attacked her in a back alley. So my only point was that yes, by the law, even statutory rape is different than forceful rape. But yes, rape is rape, and I'll apologize for using the word consensual because I know a 13-year-old can't consent to sex. Karl Malone committed statutory rape when he was 20 years old. You've repeatedly painted the guy as a pedophile who should have spent the prime of his life in prison. I'm simply pointing out that, yes, he committed statutory rape. He was never convicted, but settled outside of court, acknowledged it was his child, and did agree to support it financially, which we'll touch on later, because I know you've also contradicted that. He should have paid for this in money, but also in jail time, because having sex with a 13-year-old is deplorable and deserving of time in prison. And he's reportedly a caring father in the lives of his children, all of them, including the child born from that unfortunate, ridiculous situation with a 13-year-old. All of these things can be independently true. And we don't need to litigate the word pedophile, but my understanding is that pedophiles are typically attracted to prepubescent children and demonstrate a pattern of that behavior. Statutory rape and pedophilia, while both disgusting, are not synonymous, and nothing about this story fits the profile of a pedophilic disorder, based on anything we know, and dear God, we can all hope he isn't one. But again, you'd like to play judge, jury, psychiatrist, and executioner. The only thing I've ever preached is speaking on what we know to be true and not filling in the gaps with assumptions. For example, did he know the girl? Did he know she was 13? Probably. Based on what I now know about it being a small Louisiana town. And if he did, he probably knew her age. But those are probablys. We don't know with certainty. And there have been times in history where a black man was baited, say, by a white girl who was pretending to be older than she was. Oftentimes for the purpose of setting up organizations like the KKK. And leading to lynchings and things like that. No, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm just saying that especially during this time of racial sensitivity, I think it's acceptable to acknowledge the mere possibility that he was lied to in some way. And not responding to his name always with a lynch mob online based on you being almost positive about the circumstances of his relationship. Because we don't know for certain. As mentioned, Carl frequently gets beat up online for refusing to pay child care. But a reminder that the lawsuit was filed shortly after Carl began his playing career in the late 80s, where yes, players were well compensated and he became a millionaire, but salaries weren't nearly what they are today. And from what I can understand, if I'm reading the law correctly, Carl essentially didn't contest a child support lawsuit, which would mean he basically was conceding or admitting guilt. He felt that the ruling to his no contest, including that he would have to pay past and all future medical expenses, was excessive, and the lawsuit ended up being settled before his appeal, meaning he settled, he paid. He might not have paid the full amount he was initially ordered, but we're talking about watching other people's money. He agreed to pay child support and support the child at the end of the day. And regardless, my intent has never been about defending Carl's honor or actions. My belief is just that people don't need to be defined by the worst moment of their lives. If you still hate Carl and want to remind people sometimes, fine. Personally, I'm of the belief that, like Kobe, it's a part of his story. And it's ironic to me that you can't really see that, especially because I've now seen multiple videos of yours where you confirm that Kobe Bryant was your favorite player. One of my favorites too, top 3 player of all time to me. But, by the letter of the law, he committed rape, and rape is rape. So I don't really understand how you can support him incessantly, but also think Karl Malone is a terrible, shitty piece of shit. In his obituary, it should be mentioned to paint a complete picture of him. But it doesn't need to be mentioned every single second. And that's what's happened. During The Last Dance, everyone on Twitter calling him trash, piece of shit, pedophile. So I don't really buy your theory that most people aren't aware of it. I thought it's pretty common knowledge by now. But more importantly, Carl literally has a flip phone. None of this vitriol reaches him. Who it does reach is his family. And as you pointed out, yes, no one's talking about his family. But my point is this stuff doesn't reach Country Carl. The only people it does make the internet toxic for are his family. His 8 children, who he does have a relationship with now, and is by all accounts a pretty good father. His son, Carl Jr., released a tearful plea, essentially begging Twitter to please leave his family alone. That Carl made a horrible mistake nearly 40 years ago, but today is a good man, good father. So my only take has been, what Carl did was gross. But do we need to bring something from nearly 40 years ago up every other second? In his obituary, Wikipedia painting a full picture of him, fine. But my view, don't spew pedo and trash and piece of shit and all this shit over the internet just for his family to see every single day. You're free to disagree. I don't think my take is all that ridiculous. I did call you a little boy. I apologize for that. As you've said, you're actually a bit of a big boy. Not that big. I commend you on losing weight. And clearly, maybe I picked up the weight you lost. So maybe someday, Rusty, we can collaborate on a weight loss YouTube channel. What have I been up to since the NBA's been gone? Obviously, not playing much basketball, any basketball, and that's been really hard on me. And my Twitter followers know that I did say maybe I've gotten too deep into politics and other things that always are polarizing and have people at each other's throats. So I've said I'm not talking about politics anymore on my feed. I've been working incredibly hard to save up money with my other side gigs so that when basketball comes back, I can be in full force ready to churn out content. And I really appreciate those of you who've stuck with me. To Rusty, truthfully, part of me does believe that all publicity is good publicity thing. So if you're new here or heard of me from this video, welcome. I get that it wasn't the most flattering depiction, but I hope I've cleared up a couple of the stances and that you'll check out some of my content. But don't get it twisted. I'm not a troll. I'm not Colin Cowherd or a coward. I never say anything I don't believe. I've never posted on a burner, and I can provide you definitive proof that any people that think they have screenshots from burners that are me revealing myself or whatever, that any of those things were like screenshots that I had posted before and then they stole and posted themselves to make it look like that it's me. The amount of people who have fallen for people who are literally trolling and mocking me via this vulgar Bayfan account or this anti-Semitic whatever account when I'm Jewish is just beyond me. It's another great example of just how dumb the internet is. I speak my mind, sometimes maybe too much, but I've been 100% authentic in everything I've done. I appreciate you, Rusty, asking people not to harass me, even though many still have. And I wish you the best with your YouTube, and maybe as you get older, you'll see things a little differently. At the end of the day, there's enough room in this game for both of us, even if we come at it from very different angles and have very different perspectives. We all love basketball, and I've got respect for that, and I wish you the best of luck. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. I'd appreciate you checking out some of my other stuff. And anybody that has any legitimate questions or, like I said, thinks I said something or thinks I have a burner or any of these other things, I'm happy to show you what's not true, what's true, explain my position, or have any other conversation like a civil human being. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed it, make sure you thumb up, subscribe, check out my other stuff. And if you didn't, I wish you the best and be well. Thanks for watching.